Let's do it!
So here's the recording again. I'm doing the second intro because we failed right on the beginning. Fail boat. Hey guys, this is Marco. Welcome back to the Ministry Podcast. This is episode number 88. This is Miguel.
What's going on, guys?
This is Ronnie.
No, let's do that again.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ministry Podcast. My name is Marco. This is episode number 88. I'm here with Miguel.
What's going on, guys?
And Ronnie.
I don't know what to do. Hola.
We're already at 7 minutes. We might as well.
Yeah. Hey, let's roll with it, man.
Okay.
We messed this up, and hey, guess what? Today our subject is failure, and we're failing it hardcore here.
For some reason.
I'm up for suggestions on how to do my opening. How about that?
Yeah.
If you're watching
let's,
this, listening,
if you want to
suggest how to do
live, send a message to Ronnie about, what he should do is for his intro. Miguel's going to try and pull up here. If anybody, I don't even know if anybody's watching yet.
I think it's cut out over there.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
But we're just taking our time and taking it easy. But yeah, literally, we want to talk about failure, and I'm not sure if we're gonna cut back into the segment that we didn't have the audio recording, or we're just gonna go from here. But in the end, we're talking about Second Corinthians. Man, fail again. 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 11, and
Chihuahua.
The end of it. It says, "That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults and hardships and persecutions and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So God can take a fail and just bring glory from it, and pick us up and show us how he can be glorified through every one of our fails. So
Definitely.
These guys, we're just talking about how we want to talk through those things and share with each other our weaknesses, our failures, because we're supposed to carry each other's burdens. And when we talk about things, we realize, we just basically point to each other and say, hey, I've been through that as well, and this is what God's shown me through those situations. So we want to encourage you guys, if you have one of those failure stories that God has taught you something through, if you want to send them in, we can read them, or, if you want to just message us and through an email, and, we could post however you want to do it, but we want to hear from you. So we're running out of time on this, this segment. This is our first segment. We're actually only at 2.5 minutes of the audio recording. So we're already about to, cut out for a break, but stay tuned. We're going to come back here in just a moment.
Why am I typing it? I can tell y'all. Does anyone have a suggestion? Write it in the comments. Anyone have a suggestion for what Ronnie should do for his intro? He's not real sure.
Yeah, I'm just
what to do with his hands.
I've never been cool. I used to be cool. I used to be real cool, actually, and I lost
Don't
it.
say
I meant
it.
to tilt my camera up a little bit. Oh well,
Lost my mojo.
lost it.
I think saying mojo's not very cool. I don't know.
Mojo's not in no more.
I'm 43.
You guys ready?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, it's already recording.
It's
I was
been
about to turn
recording.
off the recording. I was about to mess
That's
it up
what
again.
you did.
Okay, here we go.
Fail.
So again, we're talking about 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 11. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And we're talking about fails. And we failed. NATO, man.
He's talking about my invention, mantis.
Yeah.
I'm going to put scripture on the back of boxers, so all these young guys that wear their pants down be spreading the word.
Oh, I remember that.
Spreading the word.
Clever.
Yes.
Clever. So.
Never mind.
No comment.
You spread the word.
Oh, man. Okay.
Thanks, Brother Nato.
So that was a failure idea. Way to go.
Fail
Way to get us
right
started,
on top of his head.
Ronnie. So I wanted to share personally a couple of things. And what I'm going to start with is, I teach the Ranger guys in our class.
What's up, Jose? My cousin. He just wanted to shout out real quick.
Oh, yeah. What's going on? Jose. And so these guys are high school age, most of them intermediate to high school age guys, and we play ultimate Frisbee all the time. And these guys are getting pretty good at it, but always there's new kids coming in and out, and so they're learning the rules. And a lot of people, if you play football, you know when you're receiving, you're getting physical, pushing each other, trying to get to the ball, when it's coming. So one of the kids was shoving me, but ultimate Frisbee is like non-contact sport. So I kept telling him, hey, you can't push me, man, And I kept telling him, and after the third time, I was getting really frustrated, and basically, next time he get up close to me to where I knew he was going to try and push me again, I planted and I just shoved the kid, and he went flying.
Nice.
And he's probably my weight, and my size, but he's only like 15. So, he had the full.
So is that a
force.
compliment to him?
Yeah. So it's he had my full force, and I really he got upset about it, and I was like, man, I told you you can't push, I told you 3 times already. And of course by this I'm raising my voice and telling him, and he's like, man, why you got to push me? And I was like, you've been pushing me, I've been warning you. And a couple of the kids were like, yeah, he told you, I heard you, he told you. And then a couple of the other kids are chiming in, man, you don't need to be pushing him. And I'm like, dude, he's been pushing me this whole time. And it clicked in my head. I was like, okay guys, I was wrong here. Look, I apologize. I shouldn't have pushed you. Shouldn't have put my hands on you, period, And this is a no-contact sport. And, I was setting a bad example because there may be times where, the Lord tells you to get onto somebody, to get into somebody's face, and that's what they need to hear, a specific word. But that's not what was happening. I got upset, and I just reacted. And I really shouldn't have done that. And I apologized to him, and, he was still upset, and he calmed down as well. But I was just like, man, this is a missed opportunity for me to be an adult and teach the kid that regardless of, whatever outside forces, that I can, honor God with what I do, and actually show him the right way to behave. And I should have just talked to him about it and stopped him and said, hey, look, if you keep pushing, you're just going to have to not play anymore, and let him learn through his actions. But I messed up, and I yelled at him, and, because he raised his voice, and I was already upset, and I raised my voice, and, it was in front of all the other kids, so they all see, Marco meltdown. And it was bad news, because then they have in the back of their head, hey, man, maybe we can get a show.
Mean.
If we push him to the edge, he's going to go off.
Let's not push Marco. He'll push you back.
Yeah. So, we have to, in every situation, remember that we're not perfect, and clearly these kids see, have seen my boundaries and things. But the other side of that is he forgave me,
Yeah.
and he lets me speak into his life. He still comes. He still has a good time. And now that's like the first thing he says when he comes. He's like, man, I want to play Ultimate. And I'm like, hey, guys, we will play after the lesson, And
I think he's trying to get you back.
Yeah.
I'm ready to play
Might be
Ultimate.
setting you up.
I've been working out.
Yeah.
So let's play some Ultimate.
So
He's going to push you down.
yeah, he's going to chop block me or, clip me. But, the thing is, God gets glory through it, because I did apologize, and I did say, look, I failed here, and he eventually, not right away, he eventually accepted that apology, and God can get the glory through that, because it builds our relationship. Even though I failed, because he let, the Lord speak to him and forgive me, now our relationship is better.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, for my failures, and we were kind of talking before this, I was trying to figure out, of course, I fail on a day-to-day basis on many things, but, to have something significant to speak about, that will kind of impact, I guess, kind of give some inspiration or impact people, we started talking, and, man, for me, the biggest failures that I've had in my life had to do with relationships, where I should have been a different person than what I was while I was with that person. So one that I can think of right off the top of my head, and I'm not going to speak on individual people, but just times in my life where we've talked about it before on this channel, where me and Marco used to be in a band, actually quite a few bands together. But we'd go play gigs at different churches, different places, stuff like that. And one of the things during that time, I was in different relationships with different people at that time. They always took priority over anything else that I was doing.
It would be so frustrating.
I was always focused on that.
And we would get so upset.
And Marco and the rest of the guys could tell you, I would show up to the show like 5 minutes before it was time to play, and I'm like hurrying to hook up my bass and all that just to get ready to play. I'd play the set, and the guys would be like, hey, we're going to break things down, load everything up. And I would say, hey, man, I want to, but I got to go. We got to do this, this, and that. Yeah. And I would just jet. So basically, I was just showing up to play, and I was just leaving.
Well, because in a local level, any concert, we are the sound, you know. So
Right,
we
yeah.
bring all of our own
Right.
amps and cabs and
There's no
you know,
sound crew. There's
yeah,
no
the lighting.
Yeah,
and,
nobody. We
everything.
do everything.
So it's a lot of gear for for that
Yeah.
kind of setup. And
So they did all
he
the
would be
work.
like, I'm just grabbing my bass. I gotta go.
Yeah, and I would burn out. And
Wow.
man, at the time, my mind was just on one thing. It was just focused on one thing. But now that I can look back at it, man, I guarantee you, I've failed those guys so much. And I know none of them hold that against me. They've all forgiven me for that. But man, it's hard to think about, to know, man, when your friends need you, and then the fact that you failed them on something just so insignificant like that, man, it's just kind of like, oh, really? I was that kind of a person? But for me, man, it's the relationships that's always given me. Now, thankfully, I'm in a wonderful and great relationship, and I've kind of moved past that in my life, because, of course, I was younger. We were in our teens when we were doing all that
You were
music
way more
stuff.
ADHD too.
Oh yeah, I was gone, man. I was
Yeah.
I could stay up for days and not miss
Yeah.
a beat. And but that's just one example, of plenty more. But I've also got to the point to where my failures actually had me scared, because there was times in some of the relationships where I had to remember, we talked about the one where you had to come speak to me saying, hey, you know what, you're in this relationship and I really don't want that associated with what we're doing. And that kind of set me back. And there were some other relationships that actually, I feel, that actually got some people, hurt, not only emotionally but physically. And it put me in a place where, like, okay, you know what, I need to fix this, because if not, I know what God's capable of, and I know what he can do to reach my attention.
Yeah.
And so I definitely didn't want to lose any friends, and I didn't
Right.
want to hurt anybody. So, man, it's an ongoing battle just with me, just on a day-to-day basis, just making sure that I do the right thing, I say the right thing, and that I'm on the right track on what I, believe God wants me to do in my relationship.
Yeah, that's really good.
So again, for when I am weak, then I am strong. And we're talking about failures, and I've had the same thing, with relationships, where that's not glorified God and it's cost me. But what about you, Ronnie?
Where have you failed, failure?
Well, thank you for that.
Your sign-on, your intro is a failure.
That's my middle name, Ronnie the Failure Pena. Now, I kid around a lot, as you may know. If you know me, you know that I kid around a lot, and but I do think about things. We talked about being a failure, your failures, last week, a matter of fact, and we were just kind of joking about that and things like that. But I have been thinking about my failures, and I kind of took it in a different way. So it's like I've been thinking about my failures, and I really couldn't think of any failures, because last week we were talking about writing down things that God. So the reason why I couldn't think of any failures is because I wasn't really thinking about any victories. And so I never thought about, like, all the victories that God has brought me through. So anytime you have a victory, it's because you're coming out of a failure.
Yeah.
And so I was never thinking about my victories. And so the reason why I couldn't think of any failures, because I wasn't thinking about my victories. And I started thinking about the disciples, and Jesus was doing all these miracles, and they didn't know how they were going to feed all these people. Like right before that, Jesus fed people before that, and they were confused, and so they were not remembering the victories they had. And so I started thinking about my victories, and then it started making me think about my failures. You know what I mean? And so one of my failures, I guess, was not being grateful. When Schlumberger was doing layoffs, one of the reasons why, and I can admit it now, but one of the reasons why I got laid off was because I was always complaining about the management, complaining about this and that.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to layoffs, it was an easy choice.
Naturally.
It was an easy choice. Just get rid of the complainer.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that was one of the reasons why I got laid off, because I was complaining. I wasn't grateful for what I had.
Yeah. Wow.
And so man, I encourage everybody just to think about your victories, and
right.
You'll definitely remember your failures when you think about your victories.
Definitely.
But that's something I've been trying to do since we talked about it last time, is writing down my victories and just praising God for my victories.
That's good.
So.
Yeah, and the benefit. Well, you were out of work for a while, but the benefit now is that you're in a another career, like a whole new area of your life.
Yeah.
And you got the opportunity to invest your lives into kids now again.
Yeah.
It's just another opportunity for God to work through you to reach people.
Just don't do it like Marco does. And
Yeah,
push them down.
Even though I want to, I will not be pushing kids down.
Yeah.
But I think the great thing is, and we talk about failures, is that God chooses the failures. So many times in the Bible, He's chosen people who didn't fit the bill to do what they wanted them to do.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, look at David. David, out of all the people that could have been chosen to take out Goliath, here's this scrawny little, I'm not real sure, but he was young in his age whenever he was doing that, to take out this huge giant that had armies trembling.
Yeah.
He had armies trembling at his feet, and this little kid comes up with a sling and a stone and takes him out.
Right.
And but God has prepared David his whole life. That's not the first time he's encountered a beast. You would say to take him out. He's done that with bears and lions and things like that. Oh my. So and then so many people, Moses with this speech. It's just God chooses people that to everybody else around them, it's like God can't use that person. There's no way God could work through him because of this failure or this that he's not good at. But God just loves to prove the naysayers wrong.
Right.
So to me, I think, we focus on your failures and you want to learn from it, but also know that just because you fail doesn't mean God cannot use you.
That's right.
That's what gets me excited about it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you fail, God's grace is so powerful and so beautiful in my life, you know what I mean? Because without his grace, I mean, you wouldn't have any hope to keep trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're always, like Miguel mentioned 2 times, I don't know if he realized it, but he kept saying he was a work in progress, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're all a work in progress.
That's right.
And if you really go by your failures, man, you won't have any confidence to talk about God.
Right.
You won't have any your just confidence level will be shot. And you know what I mean? And it's because of the blood of Jesus that we are so confident in talking about God in a righteous way because of Jesus and what he did.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where I get my confidence. I myself am unworthy. You know what I mean? But I have confidence.
Definitely.
I have confidence in being saved to talk about God.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
We're all born failures.
Yeah.
But by the grace.
Yeah. That's good. And verse 9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And that's what we want to key in here, is that it's not about how big our fail is. It's about how big God is, in spite of our failures, and how much he can pull a victory out of a failure. So, encourage you guys that if you're feeling like you're in that season where you can't get anything right, that there is, though there's valleys, but there's also the mountain peaks, where the Lord takes you to. And, David talks about being in the valley of the shadow of death. And, but the thing is, about a valley is it's because it's next to a mountain, and sometimes it's because you come right off a victory that it's so easy to fall into that valley because you're off a high, and then you don't see the things coming
it's
where you
easy
mess up.
tumble down.
Yeah. And but that also means that there's the upside too. You can climb right back up on top, and God can use whatever situation you're in. So regardless of where you're at, whatever season you're in, look to God about being the one to change the situation, instead of how do I do my own thing to pick my own self up, because we're supposed to to encourage ourselves in the Word, in the Lord. And, when we do that, that's when it kind of brings our focus back. It kind of really plugs us back in, and realizing, hey, this stuff, all the parts of the fail that we can't, feel like we can't get over is minimal. It has an end, and there is a new seasons. And the Bible says there's a season for everything. So, I want to encourage you guys that, it's not, you're not it. That's not it. If you're in that season of fail, you've got opportunity there to see the upside.
So as we're talking about that, I think a good the Apostle Paul, what he talked about, let me see if I can find it real quick. basically what he's saying is that in all things give thanks, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And it says right here in Philippians 4, starting in verse 12, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content and in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Yeah.
You know, in all things, just know and give your thanks to God that, you know, whether you're going through the hard times and whether you're failing, that God is there with you in every step of the way.
That's right.
And you should give thanks just as much in the failures as you should in the achievements and the victories you do in God, because God is preparing you for something else greater.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Yeah. And you know, there's I know there's, you know, people, I don't know how many people are going to watch the podcast or listen to the podcast, but like we keep saying in the last podcast, we're all in the same boat. Don't feel like your situation is special or different. And I hate to burst your bubble, but you know, your sins are not different than ours. We all think the same. We all do the same things.
Right.
So,
there's nothing under the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, in all of that, we're here we want to hear from you guys. You know, if you are going through something, if you do feel like you're alone and that, you know, people don't understand what you're going through, we want to be that sounding board to say, hey, we want to pray with you, and we want to, you know, try and talk out whatever it is that you're going through. And we try to do that for each other, you know, as well. And that's why you want to have those other believers, accountability partners. To sometimes you need to be checked. Sometimes you're just wallowing, you know, and you need to come out of something.
Definitely.
And that's where accountability comes in and says, hey, man, buck up. You know, this, you need to just, you know, get your running shoes on and get out there and, you know, pound some sand. But the thing is, we all need each other.
Pounds and sand.
That was nice.
So,
aggressive.
you know, that's a Jack Spirko reference. So, yeah. But, you know, in those things, that's why we have each other. That's why we have, you know, outlets like this where we can tell you, hey, we have been through those failures. We do know what it is. And we want to encourage you because there's the upside, and we'll get to those points. And on another note, if you see this isn't Game of Thrones. This is Game of Chokes. It's
I was about to say, it looked like Game of Chokes.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu reference. And I've never watched Game of Thrones. I know that winter is coming is a something phrase of that.
Winter is coming. I've never watched it either. Not a single episode.
I've watched every episode.
No, I haven't.
So anyhow, if you sent something, ask me something about, I have no idea.
I watch
about
Glee.
that show.
I thought so.
You look, what do they call it? Gleekers or something?
Yeah, I'm a gleeker.
Look like a gleeker.
And I'm a, what do they call the Walking Dead people?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I watch them. I watch that.
Deadheads.
Deadheads.
I watch Walking Dead. That's awesome.
So anyhow, guys, we want to hear from you. You can email me at marco@theministrypodcast.com. Monster Fitness.
Yes, check me out on Monster Fitness on my Facebook page. Come like it. Talk on it. Give me some tips. You know.
And I'm just Ronnie Pena.
Yeah, Pena Enya.
Pena Enya.
Pena Enya.
Pena Enya 1
Yeah.
at yahoo.com.
So
I don't check that email, so you can send me an email. But I need some suggestions on the opener and the closer.
So you're gonna have to check it if they send you something.
Yes, check.
Okay.
Yes, I will check it. I promise.
All right. So we'll put you know, the information in the show notes how you can get a hold of us. If you're looking for us on iTunes, you type in TMPC as in the Ministry Podcast. It'll be the first search result to come up. For whatever reason, if you type in the Ministry Podcast, you can't. It doesn't want you to find it that way. So, or if you type in my name, you know,
fail.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it's too broad of a statement. Is podcast
like,
is all of them.
What
ministry,
does this mean?
There's multiple ones.
Where are you going
so
with this?
whatever. You know, that's the way to find it. You can, but if you type it into YouTube, the Ministry Podcast, we're the first search result there.
Right.
And
Number one,
this is episode 88. So we got, you know, plenty of videos there for you to check out. But you guys got anything else?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. I'm not on the camera anymore, so I'm awesome.
Yeah.
No,
so we're wrapping here. God bless you guys.
I'm blinking.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. See ya.
Later.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. The audio is going to be pretty lousy in the beginning, or we're going to have to redo this first take because this recording is monitoring and it's showing the red light, but it's not recording.
You haven't been recording none of this?
The audio, no. We got it in the camera, so
yeah.
we can play the cameras. But that is just like the weakest sauce of the, of the recording.
Epic fail.
Epic fail.
Yeah.
Fail real. Number one.